We're so veterans in here.
That's funny. All right, we'll start the city council meeting for the city of Beaumont for Tuesday, August 16th. And we'll begin with closed session and we'll start at 5 p.m. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara,
Present.
Councilmember Santos,
Here.
Councilmember Fenn,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Here.
Mayor White.
Here. And Mr. Pinckney, can you talk, oh, wait, do we have any public comments regarding closed session?
I have no written comments. Carrie, are you my public comment line this evening?
Yes, I am. No
Okay.
callers on the line.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pinckney, can you tell us what exciting stuff we'll be talking about in closed session?
Yes, it will be item number one, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. One case, Western Riverside Council of Governments versus National Union Fire Insurance Association of Pittsburgh. Case number EDCV 202164 GWKKX.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session. We'll call back to order the city council meeting for the city of Beaumont. And we will start with a report out of closed session.
The council met in closed session. Item number 1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. One case, Western Riverside Council of Governments versus National Union Fire Insurance Association of Pittsburgh. Case number EDC v. 202164 GWKKX. And there was no reportable action taken in closed session. And that concludes the report out.
Okay, thank you. So at that point, we'll go ahead and close the closed session and open the regular session at 6:01. And can we start with a roll call, please?
Okay, I just want to make sure we were live. I just got notification we're on. Roll call. Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Councilmember Santos?
Here.
Councilmember Fenn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Here.
Mayor White?
Here. And next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lara, will you lead us in the
Yeah,
pledge?
please stand with me. Please, sir, right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And do we have any adjustments to the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to public comment period. Any one person may address the city council on any matter not on this agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There'll be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing in any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form at the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. If you give me just a minute, I think our Zoom is muted. Let me just fix this. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line? Rudy, can you hear me? Do we have any callers on the line?
Nicole, do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
No, sir, I have no requests. And we have no callers.
Okay. So at this time, we will move to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here or at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Are there any items that the council would like to be pulled or have questions or questions for? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for the consent calendar, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent calendar items 1 through 7.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. And we'll go into action items at this point, seeing there's no public hearings. We'll start with item number 8, update on Stewart Park Improvement Project, community outreach and survey results, and with staff report from Mr. Doug Story.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. How are you guys doing this evening? I am very excited to bring you an update for Stewart Park. And let me pull up the, oh jeez. Uh-oh. It's not on here.
Did you bring a USB? Is it the presentation that's in the packet? Okay. If you want to start talking through it, I'll download it on here, okay?
So as you know, we began a contract with Placeworks as a landscape architect company that came in and was awarded the contract to begin the planning stages of the conceptual design for Stewart Park. And one of the things that we were really excited to have them start off in the beginning of this process was to really engage the community to begin to find out what are some of the needs, what are some of the things that they'd like to see in a revamped and improved and updated Stewart Park. So we began that process a few months ago by starting a survey. Tonight is basically a culmination of those survey results. The survey opened at the end of June, right before the 4th of July. We were able to start the process, getting word out to the community, allowing them to do an online survey. And tonight we're going to go over what some of those results were for us, and just to begin to see and start the discussion of what the community is looking for when it comes to improving Stewart Park for us. We did this reach out, the outreach for this mostly through the survey tool. We were intentional on having this ready before the 4th of July event, so we had staff at the 4th of July event with iPads and with digital readers so that they could perform the survey for people and get them the information there. That was a pretty successful opportunity for us. For the survey, we had over 800 responses for the survey. Each of these responses were individual households that were able to respond to the survey, so we felt really great about the number of responses we had. We also were able to send out a mailer to a surrounding sphere of influence around the park so that we could make sure that we got the immediate neighbors, those who were there and who are going to be using the park probably a little bit more than others. We were also pretty intentional. We wanted to hit some multifamily housing complexes in the area, so we did some outreach at those areas as well, just to make sure that we had a great cross-section of respondents and a great opportunity for many people in our community to reach out and let us know what they want for the Stewart Park project. We had a lot of great success on social media by putting up the QR code. Thank you, Nicole, you're the best. By putting up the QR code so that people could find us off of Facebook or Instagram. And we were really pleased with the number of households that were able to respond to this process for us. Most of the people who responded were Beaumont residents. We do have a few people from other places, and we attributed that most likely to the 4th of July event. And it was, I think, good to receive some of the input from people outside of Beaumont, because I do believe that one of our goals that we had spoken about before for Stewart Park is we want this to be a destination park. We want people to say, hey, you know what, I want to go over there to Stewart Park to partake in the cool things that they're going to have there. So it was a great opportunity for us to even survey people outside of the immediate sphere of influence of that neighborhood, and even a little bit outside of our city. So we were really pleased with the cross-section of responses that we were able to have. The main focus of our survey was the park features and amenities. What are some of the things that you, as a resident of Beaumont or someone who's coming to the park, what are some of the things that you want to see when you come here with the park, with your family, with your friends, for a special event, or whatever it may be that's bringing you to the park? What are some of the things that you want to see? One of the things that I appreciate about the survey that we were able to encompass was different specific features. So in this graph here, what we were able to do was list the specific features that we thought people might want to see at Stewart Park. And we asked the response, would this feature be a high priority or would it be a low priority for you? And the darker line is the high priority features. And so what we've done here is we've kind of lined up the features that people were most wanting to see here. The number one feature that received the most responses that were a high priority was a restroom. So we attribute this to people who've gone to the park with small children or people who needed to go to the restroom. But it is something that they wanted to make sure that we knew was a high priority. So we'll make sure we have restrooms at the new Stewart Park. But then we asked them specific things like the playgrounds, the splash pads, different types of landscaping improvements. And what really began to float to the surface were the types of amenities that our community wants to see here at the park. So you can see moving from left to right that there was a lot of consensus and a lot of excitement and high priority for the playgrounds, the splash pads. I would call those the main features, the attraction features that would bring people to the park for a specific purpose. And some of the things that was really interesting that began to float through the survey and also in some of the comments was that people really want a park that's designed for them to be able to just go and enjoy a nice landscaped area, to have nice grass to lay out in and put out a picnic blanket, or to have their kids be able to run and play with the balls or whatever it may be. So a lot of the comments that you'll see here where it says we want a high emphasis on landscaping or specific turf, those comments that accompanied those types of responses were we want a well-maintained park, we want a usable park, something that has a lot of usable features for us as a community member or someone that's going there. Walking trails was something that floated to the surface for us as we conducted this survey, as people want to be able to go to the park, maybe have things for their family or friends or little ones to do, but also some walking trails. It was an important part of it as well. The picnic pavilions and barbecues, parking. And so we have these different features and this priority range that helps us, and hopefully what this will allow us to do is to provide your input and your suggestions as well, but then get this back to our landscape architect firm and then allow them to create a design that'll eventually come back to City Council with some different options that'll encompass all of these features that we have here and highlighting these high priority features. So when it comes to some of the specific design statements, we listed in our survey some specific things that we wanted their feedback on. Things that we asked, do you strongly agree with this statement or do you strongly disagree with this statement? And this helps us, again, take the temperature of what the community wants to specifically see in terms of the design for Stewart Park. The first one was the playground should include a shade structure. And this is something that we've been addressing at other parks, and as we purchase new playground equipment, really understanding the hot surfaces and the need for shade during our hot summer months. But this was something that almost all respondents strongly agreed with. The playground must be accessible to people of all ages and abilities. This is something you strongly agree with, or disagree. Most of our respondents really agree with this statement or strongly agree with this statement. And so as we pick a playground, not only do we want it to be fun and we want to have fun colors and fun things to do and slides and all the cool features, but we really want to make sure that we, in purchasing and choosing a playground element, that it is able to be used by all types of children with all different types of abilities and all different types of ages. And this was an important thing, that we make sure that we have an inclusive playground in our design. The park should include more seating areas. I'm assuming this was a lot of parents that said this, because kids don't really want to sit down at parks, but I'm assuming their parents do want to sit down and watch them run and do all that fun stuff. So we want to make sure that as we go through these different design elements, that we're guiding our landscape architects and our design firm as they make these choices. The park should include healthy lifestyle outdoor fitness area designed for free and safe exercise for all members of the community. And this is something that's become a real high priority, not only for communities in our surrounding area, but also for different segments of the community, as an opportunity for them to go to a park and partake in some fitness equipment and the opportunity to go and maybe have some specific workout type things that they're doing while they're at the park. And so is this something that was something that we agreed with or not? This was a fun one, where water efficiency should be a major consideration for the new park design. A lot of people were kind of neutral on this. But we wanted to kind of understand as we make the design for this, and maybe we consider different types of landscaping, what would the community's response be if it was more water efficient versus maybe your standard types of turf. Park should include a permanent amphitheater and band shell instead of a temporary one. So this was when things really began to get a little more specific for us as we went through this survey and as we go through with the design and we come up with budget implications. This might be something that we can talk about moving forward, but most people were pretty neutral on whether or not there should be a very large permanent amphitheater designed there at Stewart Park. Some people agreed, strongly agreed, but that was interesting that so many people responded as just kind of a neutral, could go either way type of response. Another thing that was also kind of along the neutral lines in the responses here was the skate park. Does it need to be expanded? Does it need the footprint of the skate park need to encompass more surface area? And this was something that was neutral. This wasn't a lot of strong support for us to create a larger skate park, but something that allowed us to say that, people are using the skate park, but maybe it is an adequate size, and maybe it's just a matter of updating the equipment that's on the current skate park. One of the last pieces of the presentation that we asked for was different parts of inspiration. I think our design team has really done a great job in kind of being a part of our community, making sure that they attend not only our events, but to really get an idea of what could be an inspiration as they design this particular park. And in the past, we've spoken about the significance of Stewart Park, just not only where it sits geographically in our city, but I believe historically the significance that it has for our community. So what are some of the inspiration ideas that we can look into? And these were some of the ideas that floated to the surface. The namesake of Stewart Park, the Stewart sisters, some of the pioneers of Beaumont, original founding members of our community, but also some of the key features of our area before it maybe looked the way that it looks now, and talking about agriculture and the beautiful mountains that we see around us. And some people even mentioned that we should maybe use the theme of wind. So maybe that could be something that we can do. I don't think anyone's going to forget that Beaumont can be windy, but they thought that is something that the community is known for. So I don't know if that means super fast slides and swings or what, but we want to try to create, as we present this to the design team, and not just present our wishes as staff or your wishes as council, but to really begin to stand behind what the community wants here at Stewart Park. And so these were some of the inspiration ideas that came forward and that people wanted to bring to the surface as considerations for that. And the last question that we asked had to do with community events. Stewart Park is obviously known for some of the large-scale community events that it hosts in our community, and our community has become known for some of those events, such as the Cherry Festival. And so we asked, what are some different ideas of, here's what's currently happening. In the survey, it said this is what's currently happening, but what are some other ideas and events? So this has been a great slide, and I've shared this slide, obviously, with my recreation staff and said, hey, here's some ideas of what the community wants. But as we design the park, here's some ideas and some considerations that we need to take in as we decide on some of the specifics. These are potential types of events that may be hosted at Stewart Park. What are some things and what are ways that we can articulate these suggestions into the final design of Stewart Park? We narrowed it down to 5 key takeaways, and I touched on them a little bit as we went through the slides. And we talked about the different features and amenities that the community was voting on and rating as a high priority. But the first and foremost, the thing that floated to the surface was the playground and splash pad. And that's really going to be the central element, we believe, to the park. It was a unanimous in almost every single survey response that we received that people are very excited to see an upgraded, robust playground for both sized, either ages 2 to 5 and also 5 to 12. But also a lot of excitement about the splash pad. So those would be key amenities here at the park. The play areas will incorporate shade, and that was an important thing. Could reflect some of the themes that people suggested as well, such as agriculture, the key features in Beaumont history, or the local environment. But those 2 things will probably be a prominent part of the design. Beaumont residents want to seek overall park upgrades. That's what we were talking about when it comes to people highly rating things like the restrooms, grass, turf, areas to congregate and play and bring their families to. They want overall park upgrades and to see those improvements across the entire spectrum of the park. The third thing, Beaumont residents want to keep using Stewart Park and have great ideas for additional events. A large permanent stage may not be necessary for the park year-round, but a smaller band shell or stage may work for these types of events. And one of my key takeaways from this one here is that our community is excited to come back to Stewart Park and to continue to use Stewart Park once these investments are put into it. And so this is an exciting thing that as we presented this survey information to them and provided them just little tidbits of what could be coming to Stewart Park, to get a unanimous response back from them that said, hey, as events are hosted in Stewart Park, as things are happening in this community, we're excited to come back here and be a part of those. So that was a really fun takeaway for us as we begin to put so much time and energy into Stewart Park. I really believe it's going to pay off for our community as a whole. While not the highest priority, the fourth one, active uses like basketball, walking, outdoor fitness. These are all considered important activities in the park. We want to create spaces for those, but we also want to be able to have some flexible uses as well across the park, some open fields and where people can do informal types of sports and gatherings and just have overall fun here at the park. And the final takeaway was the existing skate park, and our conclusion was that it is likely the appropriate size for Stewart Park, and people indicated support for the skate park, and we're happy that we have a skate park there, and maybe expanding the footprint might not be necessary, but maybe just some of the features on top of the current footprint that we have there for Stewart Park. And the last thing, I think one of the important things, and I want to spend just a couple moments on this slide here, is to really help the community understand, and this was part of the survey results as well, to help them understand where we are in the process. And so we truly are really in the infancy of this whole process in the design. And we want to be honest with them to help them understand the accuracy of what's expected for the future. This here, so we have basically a diagram running through October of 2023. What we wanted to articulate to the community is that this would be the conclusion of the construction document phase. And so this isn't necessarily cutting a ribbon on a brand new slide in October of 2023, but this is going through the process and some of the things that are included in this process. And Jeff can speak to some of the things in Public Works if you have questions about it. But there is a lot of coordination between utility agencies and the Riverside County Flood Control and Edison and Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District. And there's a lot of coordination with something so significant that needs to take place. And each of those types of coordinations take a little bit of time. And that coordination is reflected in this type of a timeline for us to produce a product that at the end will have everything buttoned up nice and be ready to award to a contractor for construction. Our best estimate as far as construction after the conclusion of this is probably in the about 12-month range that we would take to design and do all the type of building that's going to be required for Stewart Park. But we wanted to share this information with the community, with you as City Council as well, but mostly the community to help them really understand where we are in this design process and that we are chugging along. The stars in this little graphic here represent opportunities where we'll be coming to City Council for some input and for some check-in and some updates in that process. So this won't be the last time you see me in regards to Stewart Park, happily for me. I like talking about it, but hopefully you like hearing about it. I'm sure you do. But we'll have many opportunities in the future just in this design phase to come before you and offer opportunities for discussion. So we're real excited. Mostly we're grateful and thankful for the over 800 respondents from our community that took the time to fill out this survey. It really shows that people are excited for some new things to happen at Stewart Park. So I'll stop talking and let you guys talk and have some fun with Stewart Park. If you have any questions, feel free.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
We have no one on the line.
Okay, at that point, I'll open it up to questions or comments from council. Mr. Finn, you get to go
All right,
first.
I'll go first. Thank you. I think it's a great idea, and I really like the idea of the community events aspect to it. And it just kind of opened my eyes. Oh, hey, you can do that too. One thing that I had an experience with is 4 years ago, I took a Route 66 trip to Chicago with my oldest son and came, in December. And we got to drive through all the small towns and see all the holiday lights and so forth. And it was like, wow, I want to live here. And they drive to the next town. Wow, I want to live here. And so if there's something that we can do, because I know that we have a lot of residents that take evening walks, and we're high enough in elevation that we cool off in the summertime when the sun goes down. And so whether it be just, even if it's just not a holiday light setup, that maybe we can have something to where it's decorated in the evening, some lights come on, make it a nice place for people to come and take a walk, bring their kids as it's cooling down and that sort of stuff. So if there's an element of that, I would like to be able to see that and see what that might entail. I don't know if this makes sense, but if we could make a future parade route past the park, I don't know if that works because it's a little skinnier down there. I mean, nice white Beaumont Avenue is very beneficial. But if there's anything that can be done to maybe it concludes there or something like that for different events and bring people there. I like the idea of like a farmer's market and that kind of thing, getting people out. That'll help support our downtown areas and our businesses down there and so forth, that as they're coming to the park, then, they'll have more reasons to linger longer for other things. I didn't have anything really specific. I was surprised to see with the splash pad. I'm more of a pool guy myself, but it makes sense with the splash pad and seeing that in some of the other HOAs and parks and so forth. That's kind of a cool thing. Splash pads weren't popular when I was little, so that's a new generation thing there. But my thought was, if anything we can do to perhaps maybe just extend the electrical for those lights throughout the park for the entire year, I think would be a benefit and get people there more hours of the day.
Absolutely.
And then with being lit up, I think they'd be more comfortable being there if it does get dark and so forth. And when you drive down Palm and you see how the walking path kind of meanders and the street lights down there, I see people using it all the time.
Absolutely.
Same thing with Oakview Drive, as people take walks through there. Let's take advantage of the park and do that too. So that's my comments for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Finn, or Mr. Martinez, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you, Doug. Well done. I really enjoyed the presentation. I liked the number of surveys, responses that we received. We said that we didn't want to rush, so I appreciate the timeline. We'll talk about it to see how it goes, but we do want to do it right. So we do want to make sure we invest the time and so forth to get it done right. A couple of comments. Number one, I think we really have to come up with a decision on what we're going to do with the Cherry Festival, because it absolutely makes no sense to me to go forward with a design without considering what our idea is with that. The Cherry Festival, is a major part of our community, but some of the designs that I kind of foresee, and on some of the designs of the park that we saw before, had some wandering paths and stuff in there and benches and so forth, and it doesn't make it fit what we do now with the Cherry Festival. So I think we have to start thinking about and discussing with the Cherry Festival Committee on what that's going to look like. I mean, are we going to have to change where if we have a nice park that's picturesque with everything, with landscaping and so forth, we don't want that trampled on with hundreds of people. So perhaps we need to start looking at closing Orange down and putting the food vendor trucks out there in Orange with the vendors out there so people can come in the park, but the main stuff stays out there. I don't know. That's a discussion that we need to have, because that vision has to go into the design. So if we're saying, well, we have a way of putting the Cherry Festival here or here, and we can go ahead and make our design internally the way that we think we fit and matching all this, or are we going to look for an alternative location with the Cherry Festival Committee to decide maybe we want to talk to the Park District and Noble Creek and try that route. We're talking about possible turf over on the sports park, so it doesn't make sense in that direction. So we need to be careful that we're not making designs without thinking of the future, especially on what we want to do with something so big as the Cherry Festival. I mean, that's a major event for the city. We want it needs to be here, but we have to make sure that we incorporate that as we look at these designs. So, I don't really want to say we need to tailor around that because, people have spoken and these images that I foresee from our responses, they don't kind of mesh with the way that we're doing things with the festival right now. So we need to be careful with that so that we make sure that we're not spending millions of dollars on something that's going to be, I don't want to say trampled on, but, there's a lot of people there. So we need to be careful with that. How do we want this to look? I like the idea of the open field. That has a lot of input or a lot of uses. You can have, festivals out there. You can have, if you have a small stage, jazz festival, whatever you do, and you can have people out on the field out there that's not in the rides and the type of thing that the Cherry Festival does, but something on a smaller scale, and still utilize the picturesque part of the park, but on the field part, be able to have a multi-purpose to it. I like that idea, having the multi-purpose view of the park where you have your park set up and designed, your benches, your splash pad, the way you want that. But then we have another part of it that's multi-use where you can put a little festival out there. You have the band shell out there, however you want to do that. But that was my concern, was how is the Cherry Festival going to work with our concept? And I'm just kind of remembering on some of the older concepts that we had before. But looking at our survey results and seeing what people want, okay, you're going to have picturesque, you want nice landscaping, you're going to have trails, you're going to have some benches, you're going to have a nice splash pad and stuff. So how is that going to look with our major event? So I think we have to have a conversation on that so we can start, making sure that we don't go in one direction and the committee's going in this direction and then we come back and find out it doesn't work. But that's for surely what I don't want to see. The park inspiration, I like the ideas that came forth with all the different ideas of the inspiration. When we were talking in the Memorial Committee, Councilmember Fenn talked about having that out in the Memorial Park where you have different places that you can go and learn about people. I think that would be a good idea applied here. Maybe you can have an area to learn about the Stewart sisters and maybe about Tracy and different things around the park, which would be nice to incorporate the culture and the history of the city. That would be something nice. The skate park, so you did a survey. I look at it, 19% of the park users were in the 12 to 18 range, which were, that's about the skater range. So 19% said that they don't really need it expanded, or is it the other percent that don't have a connection to it that doesn't need that, it needs to be expanded? But I did an informal survey with some teenagers, and from what I hear from them, from people that used it and stuff, it doesn't really need to be expanded. It does get crowded at times, and that was their major complaint, is when everybody's there on breaks and stuff, then of course it's really crowded. But I posed the ideas like, well, if we just upgrade it, is that something that's doable rather than expand it? And I explained to some of these people that, well, because you'd have to give up this and give up that. And the majority I heard back was, yes, we agree, it doesn't necessarily need to be expanded as long as we upgrade it. So I'm with that, and I agree with that, and they're looking forward to that. So hopefully we'll get some input on that design when we get closer to that with some younger view and not just an architect, but with some of the youth voice on that would be kind of nice. But other than that, I think we're in the right direction. My biggest concern is, again, just how is the two going to work between the festival and our park. Because I want it as a focal point. I want people to come. I want people to be comfortable. But, I can't afford on spending that much money and then having to go back and replant stuff or, fix stuff and because of the volume of people that are around there. So I don't know. That's just me, but just something.
Mayor Pro Tem, I will give recognition and my hat's off to the design firm that we're working with, PlaceWorks. I was impressed when some of their project managers actually came out and attended the Cherry Festival when it was going on. And so that's been a helpful part in some of our conversations that we've been having. We currently are meeting with them once a week. And in those conversations, it's been a little more helpful because they've seen it. And of course, we told them about the Cherry Festival, but they came on the Saturday and were here walking around and kind of saw the enormity of what the Cherry Festival is, and it's definitely something that they're aware of, and it was an eye-opener, a fun time, they said, but it was definitely an eye-opener from a design perspective to see some things. So that has been a key part of our discussions, and I credit to them for coming out on that day to come have some fun and see it in that perspective.
And that'll help, because I don't in any way mean to advocate moving the festival or anything like that. I just want to make sure that we make two smart choices here.
Sure.
And make sure we incorporate that, so I thank them for that. Because it is the magnitude of the event.
Enormity is
from
my
their
word,
point of view, say, wow, okay, so how do we make something versatile that can go both ways? I don't know, maybe they can do that. It'd be great if they could, but just, thank you, man.
Mr. Laura?
Thank you, Mayor. Great job on the survey. It was nice to see all the input that we received. As far as restrooms, one of the Cal Cities events that we went to, there was a restroom there that was, I won't say automated, but took less maintenance, had the flexibility of
self-cleaning.
opening. So that'd be something I think to look into. The less maintenance, the better, I think, and then especially if you don't have to have somebody manually go there in
Amen.
the middle of the night and open it up or lock it up. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Martinez in regards to the Cherry Festival. The concerns I have is when we sit down and talk with them, the topography is one of the critical issues or critical things that they needed was level topography.
Sure.
But the concern that I have is with water waste, the water management now and the requirements that the state has imposed of whether the retention basin is going to need to be expanded at all. So that's a concern that may not give us that option. We may be forced by state standards to do something different, just something that we want to look at. And I think that may be something we look at earlier rather than later, because that is going to affect the design of the park. Early on, I had some concerns in regards to the splash pad not having any vertical elements, which was explained a few years ago. We're looking at vertical elements with this splash pad and this idea, and a themed pad or something to that effect, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So some fun stuff, some things that splash and dump water and do different things, and yeah, definitely vertical elements.
Yeah, and with Councilmember Finn's comment in regards to walking paths where it cools off at night, I'm not sure what part of town Councilmember Finn lives in, but it hasn't been cooling off at my house at all. I do like that idea, and I would like to see if there's a way to connect Palm Avenue to the park. Somehow, I don't know if there's an easement or something that we need to look at, but having that walking path connects you to walk through the park and then up and down Palm Avenue, because Palm does get a lot of use.
Yeah,
All times of the day. So, other than that, I really like the direction. I appreciate the tentative schedule that you've sent, because it is going to take time, and a lot of times folks don't understand the length of time that it takes to prep this. And I don't know if there's a way to phase construction, maybe where you start with grading so people can see stuff getting done. But I'm sure that's something we can discuss later. I do appreciate, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you back at several of these council meetings to discuss the progress you're making on this park. And so, great job. Appreciate the input.
Thank you. And Councilmember Laura, to piggyback on what you said, we've already begun the process in doing some initial studies, and Jeff can talk way more about that. He's much better about that as far as the capacity of the retention area and what some of the requirements will be. But it's something that we've already began to dive into early in the process, because before we even want to bring a concept plan, we need to ask the questions to the right agencies. Do we need to do? Sorry, Siri. We need to ask the questions to those right agencies. Do we need more? Do we need less? And that type of stuff. And so we have been actively pursuing those conversations and doing some studies in regards to that. And those are some of the reasons, too, that timeline is lengthened. And obviously, if we can do things quicker, we will. But we want to make sure we provide ample time for that type of stuff.
Appreciate you getting out in front of that. Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Santos?
Mayor, thanks a lot. Hey, great job on this, Doug. I will touch first the cherry festival, and I know they're growing so fast. I know this will come back, and I like to see them. They have alternative going to let's say another park like Noble Creek Park. If they will consider that, there will be more space. The reason is I like to see them really expand. I could like to see also back horse riding on that. Look like crazy, but the thing is that there will be a nice complement on Cherry Valley to go in there also, incorporate that. Every time I go on Noble Creek and I could see their space, it's really, really phenomenal on that. I think that would benefits them. On that, instead of we're confined on the area what we have on that. I'm not pushing them out. Giving them ideas that I think that will be good for them. Or the sports park we have on the Brookside on that side. But that would be ideal is the Noble Creek on that side. Now on this Stewart Park, I like the way you guys summarize this like movies, music, educational activities. I like the kids in there, and to get involved because when we build the splash pad in there, I think that will be phenomenal for them. And if this is a fully landscape and everything, really nice landscape, the parents could sit down in there just like picnicking and having fun in there. And then I will complement also the upgrading the skateboard park in there. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Martinez is right on that. They want only an upgrade, not expansion on that. And I've seen them, actually 2 years ago when a gentleman came in here mm-hmm. and asked for that. Leave it open, and we like to skateboard in there. So that's great, especially this market night and everything, food festivals, art festivals. That would be great on that side. Mm-hmm. And then if we could build that and everything, and I know your architect is doing so well. I saw the rendering in here. And if I could recommend that, here he goes Ray Santos on talking about Orange County. If you could visit the Ladera Heights on the okay. end of the 241. Sure. On the end of that, exit that, turn right. Ladera Heights is over there, mm-hmm. and that community, and similar to this, sure. you will see the beauty of the community. They don't go anywhere. And not divisions or anything. Ours is we have the downtown. We have the I will say my community, Tournament Hills, Fairway Canyon, on that side. I want them to see and go on the Stewart Park, and if you could recommend that, I will recommend that. If they could go on that Ladera Heights, that would be great. That's a probably I would say a 10 years old okay. project in there, and they're doing so well. That's all. Other than that, excellent.
Take job. A field trip. Sounds
Thank
great.
You, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Finn.
Yes, thank you. Just one more quick question. Any of the responses back for like a sand pit for the kids or even a volleyball court?
Nothing so much as a volleyball court or sand pit. Nothing came up for that. We do have a Gaga ball. We wanted the Gaga ball court. We asked about Gaga ball. It wasn't it wasn't ranked very high, but I think that is because they don't know what it is. But me and Elizabeth are very excited to have a Gaga ball court because it's so much fun. And it'll be somewhere. We're going to put one somewhere in Beaumont, I can guarantee you. But nothing along that. We did, as part of the survey results, there was a section where people could type in comments on anything. Uh-huh. And we do have a very long, extensive list of all the types of comments that they asked for, the things that weren't in there. I can go back and double check to see what it was for, if there's from volleyball interest or anything along those lines. But we do have all that information and all those additional miscellaneous comments that weren't included in here compiled as well.
Okay, thanks.
So, Mr. Story, there was a lot of comments when we decided to move away from the swimming pool. So how many people responded to the survey that they want the swimming pool back? Because I didn't see that in any of your.
So we didn't have, we had just over 7%. So the comments that I was talking about 7% of the comments talked about a pool. Either comments in regards to wanting a pool or putting a pool back or something like that. So any type of comment that had pool in it, we kind of surveyed that and collected that data. It was just over 7% of the comments that were back in regards to that. And it has something that we as staff have definitely been monitoring on social media and stuff every time we post anything about Stewart Park, is just some of the comments about pool and what was there with the plunge and some of those, that direction that we went in terms of removing it.
Okay. In response to the comments about the Cherry Festival, I agree that we need to plan Stewart Park to work with the Cherry Festival. Early on this year, because of the direction that Stewart Park was going, it may even been as late as last year. We sat down with the Cherry Festival committee, and we actually went over and met with Dwayne in the Parks District and considered the possibility of holding the Cherry Festival there. And you would think that there's a lot of space there, but the way that that park was designed didn't seem to really offer what the Cherry Festival needed. In other words, the way that the baseball parks are aligned and being able to try and bring in and do what they do at the Cherry Festival in Noble Creek. And I think Sports Park probably has some of the same concerns. So I just wanted to bring that up. I personally, from the 2 events we've had there with the temporary stage, I think that was amazing. I think if we continue to go with the temporary stage as opposed to some permanent fixture, that you give yourself a lot more room for doing the walks and things like that. So I would be in favor of leaning towards that process. And then the last thing is one thing that we've talked about a lot with the downtown business owners that we need that could also benefit the park is considering a parking structure of some sort. If it's a parking lot or a parking structure, something that may require the city to go out and purchase some property or use some of our existing property, like the police station, things like that, once we move forward. So I think parking would be very useful for some of the bigger events. But if it was done right, I think it could also play into our plan for the downtown in trying to bring more pedestrian activity into the downtown. So other than that, I have no other comments. I don't see anyone else interested. So at this point, it's a receive and file. I think we've made suggestions and remarks. So
Thank you very much.
What's that?
Thank you very much.
Do we vote to receive and file? I get all these different committees mixed up. Okay. So we'll move on to item number 9. But before we start on item number 9, I'd like to ask the council to look at a number of items that I think we could go ahead, if there are no comments from the public, and move forward on a couple of these, because I know that we all do our homework, and some of these seem to be ones that I don't have any questions for, so I want to run by and see if the rest of you do, and if not, maybe we can take a number of these items in one motion. So the items are number 9, number 10, number 11, number 14, and number 15. Those are the ones that I don't see a whole lot of questions or concerns on my part. And I wanted to see, first of all, Nicole, do we have any questions on those?
I have no public comments on any items. I can check with the phone line. Rudy, do
Okay.
we have anyone on the phone line?
We have no one on the phone line.
So, Your Honor, since you're gonna take that as a group, 9, 10, 14, and 15, was it?
9, 10, 11,
Okay.
14, and 15. It's just my suggestion.
Okay, so I'm going to recuse myself on item number 10 because one of the contracts is with Palm Springs Motorsports, and my firm has done some work for them in the past. I don't tonight know the details of that, but just an abundance of caution, I'll recuse myself on that item.
Why don't we just remove that from my suggestions? Okay. Any other ones?
9, 11.
Number 10, we're going to pull off that, my suggestion. So it's going to be 8, 9, 11, 14. I'm sorry, 9, 11, 14, and 15. So if there are no comments or objections, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve by recommended actions, staff recommended actions for items number 9, 11, 14, and 15.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay. And could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lara?
Yes, really quickly, great job on the Three Rings Ranch Park, and that's yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, and I want to apologize to Mr. Story and Mr. Van Bell in case you guys were looking forward to your presentations tonight.
We're okay.
So I'm going to recuse myself. We're on item number 10 now for the
Yes.
reason that I stated.
Item number 10, staff report for Chief DeLeese regarding approval to purchase 4 electric police motorcycles.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So the City of Beaumont receives the AB 2766 funds, commonly referred to as the AQMD, the Air Quality Management Department. And so what we're able to do with these funds is to purchase zero-emission electric vehicles. And what we've identified was a need to increase our motor fleet for traffic control and to reduce traffic collisions and, of course, encourage responsible driving in the City of Beaumont. We currently have 2 gasoline-powered motorcycles. We'd keep those for training purposes. The reason is they're older. When you train officers, there's a lot of drops of motorcycles, and currently the motorcycle instructor school only allows gas-powered motorcycles on their course. So once they clear training with the gas-powered motorcycle, like any motorcycle, they would, we'd ask that they drive it to their ability, get used to driving it. No different than if you transition from, let's say, a Harley, back in the day with the Kawasaki's, and we went Harleys, and then we went BMWs, and now Hondas, and of course now we'll be on zero motorcycles. So each one has different torque, different weight, they handle different. We ask each motorcycle officer who, they attend intense training. In fact, we've been pre-training our next motor officer for a month now to get ready to go to the school, which is 2 weeks. Hardest class to pass is the police motorcycle course for the braking and the cone patterns. With that, Palm Springs Motors is our local dealer. They provided a quote. Zero Motors, this is what they do. They make and manufacture electric police motorcycles. And so the concept is, since they've been road tested by other police departments, we're able to find out how they handle, how they're preferred, where perhaps other motorcycle manufacturers that really specialize in gasoline are trying to transition into the electric industry, but that might not be what they're geared for. And so this is how our motor experts trialed them and prefer it. One of our officers, our motor officer, Braunstrup, has ridden the electric motorcycle, is comfortable with it, did confirm that, it's different, the torque's going to be different, but again, you ride to your abilities, into your training, until you're comfortable to go into the road, into active traffic enforcement. And so the purchase of these 4 motorcycles is a total, with the outfitting and the graphics and our radio equipment, $146,903.71. We have $101,000 in the AB 2766 funds, And so the remaining $45,903.72 from the city's general fund. And the recommended action is to approve the purchase of the 40D SRP electric police motorcycles, approve the cost of the radio and communications equipment and installation from 10-8 retrofit, approve the purchase and installation of police graphics from Graphic Systems in the amount of $533.96, and of course to approve the use of the $101,000 of AB 2766 funds to apply towards this project. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Finn?
You knew I was coming, huh? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. So I had a few questions, but you did address some of those, so I appreciate the presentation on that. One thing in particular, what is the estimated lifespan for an electric motorcycle? Because normally people would think in mileage and that sort of stuff. I mean, is it is it hours of use and so forth?
Yeah, that I do not know right now to tell you. Okay. I can come back to you with that.
All right. And then in normal use charging, do we have a facility, do we have equipment within the police department, enclosed facility to charge them there, or do they have to be charged elsewhere?
No, we can charge them. We currently have an enclosed building here. I think it's building F, where we'll house the motorcycles and charge them there.
Okay. And then we've got 2 gas-powered ones now, and we're buying 4. How many officers do we have that are trained on motorcycles?
Currently, a certified 1.
Okay.
We'll have a second if training goes well here at the end of September. Then the goal is we've identified another officer who has his M1, and we're looking at that person at the beginning of the year, maybe at the end of the year, depending on the next course. And so we're rolling it out slow because, the training, what you want is a very proficient officer in officer safety and citizen contacts, but then also can ride a motorcycle very well. And then in totality can do all those things well together. Right? It's like playing an instrument and singing, but you do it together, very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it takes time.
So I happen to ride too, and so the thought of an electric motorcycle and the torque difference and all that, it just almost seems foreign.
Yeah.
On these bikes, they don't shift, do they? They're just it's all just one, is it considered one gear?
Right, no clutch,
okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And the positive with that too is, between the clutch and the shifting, that's how some officers, motor officers over time can have repetitive injury. It's, just the constant clutch shift, the way they take off, stop a car, take off.
Okay.
So it's an enhancement in that sense as well.
Sure. And then last question, is the motorcycles mainly used for traffic enforcement?
Correct. It'll mostly be used for traffic enforcement, but also parade routes, community events. I know they'll be at the schools for the show and tells. They're part of our overall community policing philosophy, but traffic enforcement's ideal.
Okay. I like the outreach part. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lara?
Yes, Chief, thank you, Mayor. Chief Officer Barnstrom has ridden these.
Braunstrup has ridden the electric police
His
motorcycle.
thoughts on it?
Again, he indicated that the torque is different,
Yeah.
but it's a good bike. He had no concerns with it.
No concerns with it?
No.
The torque is something that I had a concern with because
Sure.
of its direct, I guess you call ratio or.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be in the sense of like a Tesla.
Okay.
Where the torque on an aluminum car is just so
Right.
great with those 4, the dual motors that they put in these Teslas now.
Okay.
It's not that. I mean, I don't think they'll
No wheelies?
be popping wheelies off. It's just that they, they go. But again, it's no different than when they transitioned from the Harleys to the Hondas.
Okay.
And you had a bike that was so much lighter and more agile, and it handled different. And yet some folks that just couldn't let go of the Harleys, right? And they couldn't let go of this. And in this case, they seem excited about moving to these motorcycles. There's an unknown, just to circle back to Councilmember Finn's, this is newer technology.
Okay.
Departments have had them, but I don't know because they haven't been out long enough like a Tesla or something to know what the full service life is, we won't know. What somebody's ran it to, if that makes sense, whether it's hours or years.
Any electrical modifications required for the charging stations for the bikes, or is it just a regular 110 outlet that you plug in, or?
Yeah, so right now we're charging our Teslas off 220 off the back of the police department. We don't have a charging system for the police department yet. These bikes will either modify off the 110 or the 220.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. That's all I
You're
have.
welcome.
Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, great idea. I think it really helps for the air quality aspect as well. As far as kind of went along the shelf life of these, but I know there's fewer moving parts, so it should have, less upkeep. So my question is, do we know what typical upkeep is as far as costs? Is it still cost effective versus a gas powered?
Well, what we've noticed with all electric vehicles is certainly the maintenance costs are minimal compared to a gas-powered vehicle. And because you're not doing the oil change and the clutch and the transmission, it doesn't have those components. We predict it'll be less. Again, when you're on the newer end or the beginning end of technology, there's some unknowns. I can look into these and provide the city manager responses back.
Well, I appreciate using, being cost effective. So we're using the AB 2766 funds. So it's worth the investment, and it's worth the trial. Try and see how it goes. The remainder was out of the general fund, but it was out of your PD budget, correct?
We had budgeted some general fund money for the purchase of the motorcycles. And so once the 2766 funds were made available, we're able to put some money back into the general fund, and then we'll come with a different request later. Why put too much back?
I look forward to a year, see how it goes at the end of the year.
Yeah. And as you know, one of the philosophies from some time has been, I asked some questions, which is what other California agencies are using this equipment, this training, this program. And so we know that the zero electric motorcycles are being used throughout California, and we hadn't received any negative feedback or concerns from dealers. Like I said, Palm Springs being the closest, another one is Ontario. So we know there's a very large base in SoCal. There's, many more than just those two in SoCal, but those are our two closest. And so we see that they're being used. I haven't seen any negative posts yet.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And we didn't get any comments on this one, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mayor,
Oh, sure, Mr. Santos.
quick comment on this, but that's good. The net effect on this, there's a 101 AB 2766 will be applied on that. My number is, I'm just looking around 45,000 that will be out of pocket after using that money.
That's correct.
That's great. And now it's just, I'm smiling right now. And that's the electric, motorcycle. Is it self-driven or self-parking or? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You just ride in there, get that guy in there. It drive by itself and everything.
Right. Hopefully they don't try the self-kickstand.
So until you get 3 or 4 officers up to speed, you will have an extra one that Mr. Santos could go on a ride-along with?
That's right.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so I will move to approve the purchase of 4 DSRP electric police motorcycles from Palm Springs Motorsports in the amount of $126,624.56. Approve the cost of radio and communication equipment installation from 10A Retrofit Incorporated in the amount of $19,745.20. Approve the purchase and installation of police graphics from Graphic Systems in the amount of $533.96, and approve the use of 101,000 of AB 2766 funds to apply towards this project.
I'll second that, Mayor.
One more question. Is the 101 the total amount of the 2766 funds that we've gotten from the grant?
Is that the remaining balance in the?
There's additional funds that are sitting in there. The 101 is what was budgeted for these for the fiscal year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you.
This will bring us to item number 12, receive and file change order 24 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade extension staff report from Thaxton Van Bell. Mr. Van Bell.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As part of our MBR treatment system replacement, we experienced a deduction of approximately $330,000. And I felt it was important to memorialize this significant deduction and ask that you receive and file change order 24.
Okay, and Nicole, do we have any public comments on this one?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
We have no one on the line.
All right, we'll move to council comments, questions. So why is there a deduction of $329,000?
This is part of our MBR replacement, and we
Okay.
experienced a deduction there.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you expand on that a little bit?
So you changed the equipment that you were using, the membranes, and you went from one type of membrane to a different one, and so the membrane supplier of the initial agreement refunded the money that was.
Got it. Okay. All right, thank you. See no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to receive and file change order 24 in the amount of $329,839.12.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes, item 13, City Council approval of change order number 25 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade expansion in the amount not to exceed $185,639.07 for plant improvements. Mr. Van Bell.
Before you should have a red line document where we pulled one of the sub-line items out of 25 for future consideration, so that this total amount should be not to exceed $84,230.83. Okay, so on change order 25, we start with another deduction. Item number 1 is a deduction for not needing 3 variable frequency drives that were originally considered as part of the blowers. Item number 2 is a need for a pressure reducing valve. We have our own non-potable loop system inside the wastewater treatment plant, so we use our own produced and cleaned water to use on our pumps, use to clean the equalization basin. What we found is it's a pressure-based system, and when we go to clean the equalization basin, there's a huge dump of water. It drops the pressure, so installing this pressure-reducing valve maintains back pressure, so the rest of the system still has water and doesn't experience a dip or go dry. Number 3 are Huber fine screens. City purchased this equipment and worked with Huber. We had some additional support with WM Lyles for the installation because of the size of the equipment. Item number 4 is a change to the reverse osmosis chemical system. These chemicals have vent-offs, and the original design, each chemical skid had its own tote, but as you may recall, we opted for a tank farm outside so we could use bulk chemicals. That necessitated installing essentially small carboys that capture the vapor and the liquid, and then those also have alerts on them, so when they're full, we're notified, so none of those chemicals gas off or leave the site. And then item number 5 is for our waste activated sludge pump station. As designed, the intent was to utilize some of the existing infrastructure from the original plant out of that pump station. However, once they tapped into it, they realized that some of those valves were bad, and They're all underground encased in concrete, so this work will install a new header just over that and then tie in to the pump station. So those are the items on change order 25, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
We have no one on the line.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martinez, you're up.
Just real quickly, it was interesting, so they buried that equipment, so this new header probably goes over it and we don't bury that anymore.
Correct.
And it's on the, was that an old practice or is that just a design that?
It was the elevation
Oh.
and things at time for the
okay.
tanks that they used to feed.
So this will be able to be replaced in the future since it's up and above? Okay.
Correct.
That's all. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? See no other comments, I'll take a motion.
Here it is. All right, Mayor, I'll make the motion. The updated recommended action is to approve change order number 25 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade and expansion in the amount not to exceed $84,230.83 to be applied to the pre-approved contingency funds.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Thank you.
You're still here, Mr. Van Bell. We'll go to item number 16.
Oh, yep.
Oh, it is?
Sorry.
I believe,
My typo.
What's your time?
All right.
Aha, okay. Go.
Staff report, Jennifer Eustachian.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have for you this evening is a completion of rental agreement on the Vector and Patch trucks. This agreement was brought forth to Council in December 17 as a lease to purchase agreement with Providence Capital Funding, Inc. It was transferred to Alliance Funding Group in June of 2018 with a payment schedule, those payments concluding on June 1st of 2022. The city received a notification that the agreement had concluded and we had not been notified of how we were going to continue this agreement. So we went back and looked. There were options in section 3.07 of the agreement that you can choose to finalize the purchase by paying Alliance the fair market value of the equipment that's determined by Alliance, renew the rental agreement for a period not less than 12 months, or let the agreement automatically renew for 1 year at the current lease payment. City staff has assessed the condition of the equipment and determined that both are in excellent condition with very low hours of use and have a substantial amount of remaining life. The amount to continue the rental agreement for the remaining of the life would probably exceed what the cost of the market value that they are giving us to pay off these two vehicles. There was a lease payment made in July that has been applied to the payoff quote that's provided as attachment A. And so the fiscal impact as a payoff quote totals $212,426.98, and that's for both the Patch and Vector truck. There were rental payments that were included in the fiscal year 23 budget totaling $38,340. A budget amendment would be needed to bring forward to council for the remaining $178,086.98. This would be recommended budget amendment at the general fund. Just to let you know, the Vector truck is used in wastewater operations. So this would be general fund subsidizing the wastewater for that capital equipment payoff. And the recommended action is to approve the $212,426.98 payment to Alliance Funding Group for the payoff of the Vector and Patch truck. And with that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any public comments on this item?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
We have no one on the line.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lara.
Thank you, Ms. Eustachian, for the report. Do we know how it went from Providence Capital to Alliance?
We don't. We called Providence and asked them, and they just said it had been transferred over. My best guess, this is my assumption, is that we had applied for financing and that financing didn't go through, and that maybe this was the second best option.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and I know that this did not occur under your watch, it occurred previously, but it looks like that adjustment cost us over 200,000?
Yeah, it's about what was in the original staff report versus now it's about $238,000 difference.
Okay. I appreciate you bringing that to us in order for us to take care of this and get this addressed. It's unfortunate that the financing had occurred and the change had occurred without coming back to council for that type of money. But I appreciate you bringing that to us now. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about the process here. So the city council approved to purchase a patch and Vector truck by means of a lease purchase agreement, which normally means, what does that normally mean with a lease purchase agreement? In other words, is it a lease to own? Is it a lease that eventually we pay the lease payments and we own it? Or is there a balloon payment that's due at some point?
Normally, it would be that you're making payments and that you would have a schedule, and at the end of it, you would have the option to purchase. You could have an amount that would be due at the end, not normally specifically the market value, but it could be somewhere, it could be even $1. So it's just $1 amount to option for purchase at the end of the agreement.
So I had a lease car once and never did it again because of the what you have to pay at the end. And I was wondering about the same question that Mr. Lara brought up, and maybe Mr. Pinckney, you could address this if necessary. How could Providence Capital Funding convert what we approved as a lease purchase agreement into a rental agreement with a different lender? Is that something that was written into the original contract when we purchased it?
So the contract that you have in your packet, it's a rental agreement. And then at the end of the term of the agreement, you can purchase the equipment by paying fair market value. And so I agree with what Ms. Eustachian said, that with a lease to own or rent to own type of an agreement, sometimes, maybe not necessarily all the time, but sometimes there is a balloon payment or some payoff amount at the end, and it might be $1 or it might be some other figure. In this situation, it was fair market value. And so that's the number that's before you. The item went before the council in December, on December 5th, 2017. The contract that's in your packet was...
Before you mention that, a second ago, you mentioned a contract that was in our package. Is this the same one or a second different one?
The one that's in your packet this evening was not in your packet back in December of 2017. It was
in 2017, there was a contract in there, but that was not the one that's in our package.
I did not.
It was quotes.
It was quotes. I didn't see a contract.
In a credit application, that was all that was in the packet.
Okay, so we never actually signed a contract other than...
It looks like what happened was it was approved in December 2017. A contract was signed with Alliance Funding Group in or about June of 2018. So
At some point, we went from approval of lease purchase with a credit app to June of 18 rental agreement.
Okay, so the contract that we eventually signed in June of 18 was not what the council had approved in 2017?
Correct.
Okay, and the comment that Mr. Lara made was this cost us $200,000+ When he says that, is that because of an error that we made? When you say it cost us, I mean, to me, that means that was not... When you say cost, that's over what we were approved in December of 2017.
I don't think anybody sitting here knows all the details of why between December and June, the decision was made to go with Alliance Funding Group, but that may have been the best deal that the city could get in terms of financing at that time.
We were still struggling with our credit.
Is that something that would normally come back to council that says you guys approved a purchase agreement and now we're going to go to a rental agreement? Or is it something?
I think it would normally, yes.
That's something I would bring back.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that extra information. I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll take a motion on this item.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve $212,426.98 payment to Alliance Funding Group to pay off of a Vector and patch truck.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item 17, set time, date, and place for a special workshop. Oh, boy. Fiscal year 22-23 budget amendments, update on capital improvement projects, and discussion on the outfitting and apparatus selection of Fire Station Number 106, formerly known as the West Side Fire Station. Right?
It only took me 4 months to ask for a workshop.
Okay.
So we have several things that we need to talk about and focus on, and my recommendation is to have a special workshop and request that council set it for sometime mid to end of October. We need to talk about budget amendments. We're going to present to you the first quarter, so July, August, and September budget amendments that need to be presented and approved to council. We also want to do a high-level overview of the capital improvement projects, but keep in mind, this is not going to be a public hearing amending the CIP. It's going to be an update from your department heads on where we're at with the individual projects, and then some recommendations and discussion on maybe consolidating some of them. And then at a later date, we would bring the CIP program back for public hearing, adoption. And then the last thing that we'd like to talk about is, like I said, we're breaking ground on a fire station number 106. We do need to talk to council about how we're going to outfit that station and select apparatus. And our division chief, Todd Hopkins, will be bringing some different types of engines, ladder trucks. It's going to be a show and tell. And so we'll have them parked out in the back lot, and we'd like council to spend some time looking at them and asking questions. There is money programmed in the budget right now, about $1.2 million, to purchase a fire engine ladder truck. And I think we need to dive deeper into that to see exactly what council would like to see at the new station. And so those are the three things that we'll be talking about at the workshop.
Okay. So should we go through week by week? First week and the third week, we have a city council meeting. On a city council meeting night? Are we in October? 18th?
October, so the 11th?
Is that a planning commission? It's typically planning. But where, if you got trucks here, where are we going to be holding this workshop?
Here, we'll break and
Okay.
wander around and then come back.
Council touch a truck.
Yes, council touch a truck.
If that is the only day that works for council, we can put planning commission on that.
I don't think it's the only day. Are you better off if we do it the first week or the third week?
The time doesn't change yet.
How is the 25th? That's a Tuesday. Are you having planning commission on the
No,
25th?
that's our extra meeting if we need it.
Changes
so.
now, like after.
We could look at the 11th or the 25th, and we could move Planning Commission if you want the 11th.
Okay. Is everyone okay with the 25th?
Didn't hear a word you said.
25th. We know.
We had a side conversation on,
We know.
is it going to be bright enough outside?
Yeah, we were talking about the daylight.
Time doesn't change until
November now, right?
November, and we'll do the touch a truck first.
Okay,
It has
so
to
what
be
was the date?
approved. 25th.
25th.
It's a Tuesday. Would be our extra
That's in
council meeting if
October.
we needed it.
That looks good for me.
Okay.
25th? Okay.
Can we set it for
5 o'clock?
4:35? How does earlier than 6
4
o'clock?
o'clock sounds good to me. Can you make 4 o'clock?
I said 4:30 or 5.
Let's do 4.
4:30?
4?
You'll have to cut your nap
Said
short.
4:30.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Are you good with 4 o'clock, Ray?
You do 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's good with anything at this.
So 4 o'clock on the 25th.
4 o'clock on the 25th? Are you okay with that? Okay.
Say 4:30 or 4? He said 4, you said 4.
I said 4.
I said 4, 4:30, or
Okay,
5.
so 4.
Yeah, it's entirely up to council.
Make it work.
Do we need legal counsel for a workshop?
Normally you don't.
Okay.
Okay.
But if you want us there, I won't be there.
Okay. So we can decide that later, but we'll go at 4 p.m.
On the
on the
25th?
25th.
Do we need a motion?
I'll move to set a workshop for the 25th of October at 4 p.m. And that'll be a special workshop for the items listed.
I'll second.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Okay, next item 18, approval of city attorney invoices for the month of July.
I'm going to step out on this one
Okay,
since this one involves my law firm.
Did we need to check with fire chief on that date, or are we pretty good?
Yeah, good question.
You already know. Oh, here, oh, okay.
so do we have any public comments on item 18?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
We have no one on the line.
Mr. Martinez, Mr. Finn, did you guys want to speak on this one?
No, sir.
Okay.
I just want to remind the public that the, Mr. Pinckney's office does send reports to us in detail about all the litigation involved.
Okay. Seeing no other comments or questions, entertain a motion, please. I'll move to approve the invoices in the amount of $62,266.50.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Next item is legislative updates and discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brief legislative update for you this evening. We're nearing the end of the legislative session. August 31st is the last day for any bill to be moved out of either house and onto the governor's desk for consideration for signature. We're seeing some of the just as we have in the years past, some of the ADU bills and big housing-focused bills still moving through onto their second and third readings, getting ready to likely make it out of their respective houses. We have some bills that will affect timing on housing approvals, some bills that will affect how we approve or deny residential projects, and then some other bills dealing with, like I said, the ADUs. A couple interesting bills I thought I would highlight that are still moving through in light of all of the conversation we've had this year about street vendors and sidewalk food sales and such. There is a bill moving through the Assembly and the Senate right now having to do with an amendment or what would amend the California Retail Food Code. It would authorize cottage food operations or micro enterprise home kitchens if they are approved by the county public health, who is responsible for approving those operations. They would be authorized to then support up to 2 food vendors that would serve food on sidewalks. And those would be, again, non-motorized, not the motorized like our food truck ordinance, but the ones that we have dealt with over the year and a half that have popped up out and whatnot. So we're continuing to watch that, see what happens. I anticipate it will pass just because the climate in the state right now is very favorable towards the non-motorized food vendors. So we're anticipating that will occur. And if it does, we'll monitor how that impacts our processing of the MECOs, the micro enterprise home kitchens, and the cottage food applications that we see come through this city. There's another interesting bill that has to do with road improvements. It would affect our Public Works Department, and it would essentially require that we have an option for using recycled materials to the extent feasible in repair and maintenance of our roads. So we'll continue to watch that and see how that unfolds and how that plays out. There are a number of other bills, but I know Chief has some, actually several, that he would like to update you all on this evening too. So I'll turn it over to him if, unless you all have questions for me.
What's the bill number on the modification to the food vendor? If you can email it to me later when you find it. I just wanted to take a look at it. And when you talk
SB 972.
So when you talk about being supported by cottage food industry, in other words, it sounds like they would make it at home and then it'd be prepackaged and taken out?
Yes, so it would be made at home and then it could be served from the cart. We've been watching this because obviously when you have a large amount of food or large amount of home kitchen type uses, we've actually seen impacts to our wastewater plant and discharge coming down the lines and stuff. So yeah, so this is something we've been keeping an eye on over the last couple years. I wasn't sure what was going to happen with this, but it's definitely moving.
The other concern that I have is modifications with ADUs and how that affects tract development and the impacts to cars and parking or lack thereof or not required. Just seems like state overreach and could severely impact us.
So typical state overreach. The good news is I don't think there's any big changes coming. I think we've seen a lot of those big changes already. So now what we're seeing is things that affect approval time, things that prohibit planning departments from denying ADUs if they don't meet established setback requirements. The allowing of a freestanding garage or other freestanding structure to be converted into an ADU. Another big one that's still moving through ledge right now is objective design standards, and that has to do with the approval of projects. So, and this will be important because next month when the housing element update comes before you guys for consideration, we actually have built in objective design standards to meet the state's goals. So we're preemptively, addressing this through the housing element, but it's just another layer of the state.
Okay. I'm sure we'll have
helping us approve ADUs.
I'm sure I'll be bugging you later. So thank you very much for that update.
Mr. Finn.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to,
We have an update from the chief, but while he's
okay.
walking up here, I want to update you on AB 2449. That's the teleconferencing bill that's been moving. It was to be read for its third reading on August 11th, and we haven't received an update yet, so likely we'll be back in September with an update on that. More than likely, it's going to go to the governor's desk, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, when you say teleconferencing, you meant for our meetings, right? Or what do you mean?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Okay, Chief,
Yes.
sorry.
Mayor, if it pleases the court, I have a very brief response to Mr. Finn's questions. The batteries on the Zero bikes are warranted to keep at least 80% of the original charge for 200,000 miles or 10 years. And then the maintenance costs are significantly less. We'll have tires will be replaced as normal. Brakes last longer because most of the braking is degenerative braking. And then light bulbs and the drive belt every 60,000 miles.
That's very good. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome, sir. And so we have some wins. I'll be brief. We have some wins tonight to report out of legislation. And so AB 2547 was the determination of bias. And what this was, the post was going to make the definition of bias. And whatever definition they had decided, we would be compelled to use their definitions in determining if our officers had used any bias. And what you don't want is, something so large and bureaucratic as post making those definitions. And so that bill's gone. AB 2644, one of the most significant bills I've been talking about, this was the custodial interrogation bill. And this was going to be the bill where you couldn't interrogate persons the age 25 or younger. And we talked about most of our violent offenders are ages, 16 to 25 and those things. And so they amended the bill to 17 years or younger, which really already mirrors a law that's already in effect for minors that must have an attorney present, and you couldn't use any advanced interrogation technique. So we called a win. We're opposed, but we're for Cal Chiefs, but we're moving on to things that need our attention more so. But we got the concessions that we could live with. AB 2790 was mandated reporters. This was a bill that was going to make it so certain patients who had been injured or assaulted or abused would not have to no longer report to law enforcement. So, for example, domestic violence victims that were checked in, or no longer would they be required to call law enforcement. And so this would be abuse that would be undetected, that we could not intervene in. And as you know, we advocate and we have services, and it's beyond arresting perpetrators. It's about creating environments safe for the victim, whether it be male or female, and those children. And then the last victory, it's another large one, SB 1000 by Becker. That was the radio encryption bill. We had all reported what our costs would be. So we reported to Sacramento that this council approved about $1.2 million to go to PSEC and radio encryption, and all that would have been undone. The costs were overwhelming. And so the actual finance committee in the legislature actually put a pause and said, hey, you all need to take another look at this. They rarely step in on these matters. And so when they did that, we were able to basically kill the bill. But the bad news is AB 9.
Do we want to continue?
You want to know this, because you'll know what we'll be focusing our efforts on, and I may come back. I know. City manager wanted, in all fairness to her, she wanted bad news first, but because I don't want you to hang on the wins, I want now everybody to focus on what we need to focus on, which is going to be AB 937. This is the sanctuary state protections for violent felons. And this would be an enhancement over SB 54. where low-level misdemeanor offenses, there's a sanctuary status. Law enforcement, if you were to catch an undocumented person for just a run-of-the-mill DUI, I don't consider the DUIs run-of-the-mill because they're all potentially ending a life. But in this case, it's a misdemeanor. We could not contact immigration services. This bill is trying to change it so any crime, any felony would be sanctuary status. We could not work with any federal partners. The difficult part about this bill is there could be civil penalties for an accidental, meaning if I work with Homeland Security and or the FBI, and then the FBI then takes it and turns it over to ICE, the original case coming from Beaumont, we could be held civilly liable by the suspect. These are the dangers of this bill. So I may be coming back for your support. We'll see if we can get any movement on this bill soon. Another one, SB 299, compensation for criminals. The California Victim Compensation Board is not even funded well enough to take care of true victims in the state of California. This bill by LEVA would make it so that if, let's say there was an encounter with law enforcement and we used force, and even if it was justifiable and we arrested them for assaulting our officer, that person could compel the Victim Compensation Board to receive monies. And I have to imagine that would just be the start, and I'm assuming they would get precedence over true victims in this state. And so this is a bill that's just kind of a slap in the face to all California residents. Truly, we're not speaking about an improper use of force, but a proper, where even the suspect was convicted of assaulting an officer, they could receive compensation. And then the last one is SB 300. This is murder resentencing. And so what it's saying is this would repeal the provision requiring punishment by death or life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for a person convicted of murder in the first degree, resulting from an act of reckless indifference or human life as a major participant in certain specified violent felonies, meaning murder of a police officer, murder involving torture, murder involving the rape of a child, murder of a witness, mass killings by explosive device or bomb, or any gang-related murder no longer would be mandatory, death or life imprisonment without parole, or what we call LWOP. And what they're trying to do is say, no, we're only talking about the minor accomplices, like the getaway driver, right? So we have the felony murder rule. And so if you're the getaway driver, what we were able to do, this is how you stop most gang crimes, because they send a minor in or a low participant to do the robbery, but then the store clerk shot or has a heart attack or anything that was created out of the felony. If there was a death, then you could charge them. And they're trying to do away with that. And they're trying to say, well, no, it's just for the minor participant, but it's actually for all the participants in the crime, even the shooters. And so these are the three that I believe that I wanted to present last, because I really need you to hang on these. I'll be coming back if we're not getting movement, and we may have to get involved with council action. And with that, I can answer any of the questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I don't think we have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the economic development update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Economic Development Committee met last week on the 10th, and we received a presentation from WRCOG, Casey Daly at WRCOG, on their commercial PACE program, which really details, if you know anyone that operates a business or a landowner that leases commercial property, pretty interesting program that allows you to perform certain upgrades on your business and the structure, and then the cost of those gets put on your tax roll, so you get to pay it over time. We also had a presentation on zoning changes proposed for the downtown area related to parking, floor area ratio, changing some permitted land uses, adding some permitted land uses. And all of those recommendations that were presented to the committee stemmed from the downtown business meetings that we've had, as well as downtown business owners and landowners that have attended prior EDC meetings. So the committee did vote to recommend council review and act on some of those. So you'll see those zoning changes at a future meeting. And then the last item of business was staff presented a draft or business incentive package program, some just ideas, and the committee discussed those, provided feedback to staff, and directed staff to present these concepts and ideas to the downtown businesses at a future meeting, not an EDC meeting, but a future business meeting that we're scheduling right now. So once we get that, we get their feedback and comments, we'll return to EDC to better structure that incentive program. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Could you address that last part of our discussion sort of was focused on the commitment that the council made to contributing resources and funds to work through the downtown business area. I think that was a big part of why we wanted to reach out to the business owners and get their input on what kind of incentive packages and ideas that we could present to invest in the downtown.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So the idea of incentives came up from that original downtown business meeting that was conducted in March. And then through the budget process for fiscal year 2022, 2023, council allocated certain funds, roughly $500,000 for business incentive programs for the downtown. So staff has come up with certain ideas, but it's much better for us to throw those ideas at the businesses, present them to them, see if those resonate with them, if they feel that there's merit and value in those programs, whether they'd be able to utilize them to keep their business open, to expand, possibly help us attract new businesses to that area, all revolving around the barriers of entry that we've learned from meeting with landowners and businesses over the last, 6 or 7 months now. And that's really what the incentive package aims to do. So now that we have some conceptual ideas of programs, we'd like to present them to the businesses and see how they feel about the programs. And if they like them, we'll return to EDC and to council with those concepts. If they feel we need to alter them or come up with one that we may have not thought of, we're more than happy to do that as well.
Can you briefly talk about the 4 items that we were focused on?
Yes, sir. So the first one was an attraction campaign. Concept was to provide certain dollar amounts, either in a grant or possibly forgivable loan amount to targeted industries within the downtown. We've not defined what those targeted industries are at this point in time. That'll ultimately be a council decision. Staff has come up with industries that we feel would be possibly the best bang for the buck or would really serve as potential catalyst projects and businesses within the downtown, and that would be restaurants, smaller restaurants, bars, what else? Entertainment types of uses, breweries, distilleries, things that are going to bring people into the downtown that we want people to hang out at, come here on the weekend, go back and forth between various businesses through pedestrian-friendly environments that we're trying to create here. So that was the first idea. The second idea was in direct response to some of the comments we've been receiving from businesses along the same lines for the same industries, is we have a potential barrier of entry as it relates to our sewer connection fees for older buildings. And what that means is if you were to propose a restaurant within the downtown area, you have a certain nest egg that you're looking to invest money into that business. You want to start it up. You're prepared for the building alterations, which are to install a county health department approved kitchen, and you're willing to pay your fees for the TI improvements and so forth. The city does have a sewer connection fee that we levy against all uses, houses, industry, any commercial business within the city. And what we found is that just how the fee structure is done, and it's not incorrect, it's just the cost of treating that sewer flow from a restaurant is higher than other types of uses. And once you add all those up, that sewer connection fee has the potential to break the project, or it may eat into a business's 1 year fund or the 2 year fund where they had planned on having operating capital to sustain and last the first year or two while they're trying to create a customer base for a restaurant. So the idea would be to possibly waive that sewer connection fee for certain industries within the downtown, or possibly defer that connection fee for a period of time and allow them to pay that back either monthly through that deferral period or pay it all back at the end of that period. The next program was
The next two were just a little more briefly.
Yes.
The help with matching funds for facade improvements or updates. And
facade improvement program, which would help people upgrade the outside of their business storefront, possibly a matching grant on that. And then the last one, super simple, which is we have a pre-application fee to look at application ideas within the city. It's around $900 for a pre-application, and it covers all the city departments looking at a potential application before they file the big one. And what this would do is it would possibly waive that fee for businesses looking to enter into the downtown, just to help really stimulate ideas and concepts that people might have to enter the downtown area. And that concludes that. Thank you.
Thank you. And another suggestion was looking to see if the business owners were interested in, or the property owners interested in, matching funds for improving their parking lots, things like that. And then the discussion led to the fact that we really needed to get input from the business owners and property owners. So that's why we asked for a follow-up, second meeting with the Downtown Business Association. All right, we'll move on to the city treasurer report. Thank you, Mr. Warsinski, appreciate that.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I have a number of items because we did have a quorum at a meeting on last week on Monday. I'll give you the bad news first. We are down 2 members, and one of the alternates that we chose the last time that you approved, haven't been able to raise contact with him. We were trying to see if he'd be available to be one of the fill-ins, but we're down 2 members right now. On the good side is we did review and recommend approval of what was in the consent calendar, the recycled content paper and the organic waste purchasing program. We went over that pretty thoroughly. We reviewed the financials, the general and wastewater financials right now, and they're not completed because they're still taking in some invoices through August, but both should come in a positive under budget position. The audit is underway, and the good news from my standpoint, because it was a little picky item since I became the treasurer, is that the draft on the financial audit will be in December. That is the targeted date, which means the council will get it in January instead of when I first started, it was coming out in April. Investment report, and this is part of the policy that we have, that the treasurer is supposed to give a report on the investments once a quarter. Our investments are being maximized as the internal rates, the rates have increased, the investment rates. We just are doing the best. Our agency that's taking care of that are doing their best to be able to maximize that. The returns, however, have improved, but they aren't keeping up with the inflation number that we see. The PARS 115 that is supplement our calc had a negative second quarter, but if anybody looks at their portfolio over the last 6 to 8 weeks, I think everybody understands the situation.
Mr. Genetti?
It's the matter of the situation turning to a better condition on investment.
Mr. Genetti?
Yes, sir.
When you look to the left to read your notes, we can't hear you when you're talking.
Yeah, I noticed that somebody was interfering with that partly. I see Mr. Millman is on the screen right now.
Yeah, it's because your sound drops off, so it goes to the next person who has sound. So
yeah, I don't understand that because the computer's right in my face. Anyway, the last item is the subcommittee. The training issue is that you have previewed previously and approved. It just needs to be updated and will be done. And the other is the CFD training is we're awaiting the hire of the GIS person to help with that particular project. And with that, Mayor and Council, that is all I have to report.
thank you. And we'll move on to the city clerk report. Mr. Millman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And Barry, I did not interrupt you. I want to make that perfectly clear. Two things. First of all, the deadline for candidates to apply to get on a ballot for the November election is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Secondly, during the month of July, Nicole received 25 requests for public records and fulfilled all of them. Staff time allocated was 7.25 hours. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Millman. City attorney report, Mr. Pinckney.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay, and city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. You have 4 handouts in your packet, and those are included in your packet as a method of notifying council as much as it is to notify the public. The first one is the Legacy Highlands scoping meeting, which will happen this Thursday here at City Hall at 5:30. That is the first step in that particular project. It is required by CEQA. So I put that in the packet to notify the public. The next item in your packet is sales tax update. That is from the first quarter of 2022, and it gives a lot of good information. It compares the first quarter of 2022 to the previous first quarter in 2021. There is almost a 300% increase in sales tax from first quarter 2021 to first quarter 2022. And then another document it is from HDL, and that's the California forecast, and it's just some light reading for you when you have a chance. And then lastly, you have your department project schedule updates with your Gantt chart showing where the departments are in the various projects. I do have a couple announcements. On September 13th at 10 a.m., the city will be hosting a groundbreaking for fire station number 106 at the site where the station will be built, and that's on Potrero and Western Knolls. On August 27th at 10 a.m., there will be a ribbon cutting at Rangel Park, and both those events are open to the public. We are also trying to schedule a Tesla ribbon cutting for some new Tesla equipment that we have at our lift station on Palmer and Oak Valley Parkway, and it's Lower Oak lift station. And then we have some great news. The housing element update will be heard by the Planning Commission on August 23rd, and it will come to City Council on September 20th, and that's all that I have.
Thank you. At this point, do we have any requests for future agenda items?
Mayor, I do actually have one. I've been working on a youth council possibility, and it started way back when Mr. Lara and I were talking about that, but it's been a little pause. So I'd like to discuss it with our city manager, but kind of set something up for somewhere within the next month or two. so we can talk about that. And if we're interested, we can try to start soliciting candidates for that. So on a future item, and I'll coordinate with Ms. Gibbs on when the best time to return that would be.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? So I have one that I'd like to consider. It's been in the news a lot with other cities putting in their truck routes and those impacting their neighboring cities. So with the banning project that's coming forward and the concerns that our citizens have along Potrero and then some of the other residential areas over there, I'd like to look at the possibility of being able to declare some of those areas as prohibited to truck traffic, see if we can do it, see what implications there are, see if there's interest on council to go in that direction. So if we could get that on a future agenda, I'd appreciate that. All right. And at that point, we'll go ahead to council reports. And we'll start with, who should we start with today? Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank Taxton on the last Monday. On the that was a great plant tour that I had with you, and welcome back. I enjoyed that, and hopefully from the gravity, everything up to the office. We went to your office, and first time I've seen the laboratory in there too. And then I call it war charts you have in there, and it's live and everything. And you share the 1995 site we have, the old pictures in there. And I shared my, my experience in there 6 years ago when I joined the council. That was excellent. I mean, I wish, we could share this to the even the school district, some of the kids in high school and everything. And that would be great that you could share that to the school. If you have something, to share with us, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always been our intention once we're completed with construction, I mean 100% complete, and they're gone, to open up and host tours to, anything from all of our STEM learners, things like that. They're usually interested to, I wouldn't be surprised if we'll get people from around the world wanting to come and see what we built over there.
I'd like to see that, man. I mean, you have a big asset in there, and very educational on that. Thank you so much. I mean, hopefully the council will join the tour also on the second trip. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Lara.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report, just a couple of questions. So on your manager's report, I can drive a Tesla to charge it at a lift station?
No.
I want to make sure I was clear.
No.
I mean, because I'd prefer to go to In-N-Out, but anyways.
No, it's Tesla infrastructure that was added to a lift station, free to the city.
Nice.
And we want to celebrate that, so.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's something we're celebrating.
We're trying to line up, and we intend to do a future council presentation on it as well.
Fantastic. Just want to make sure I was clear. Scoping meeting. I looked for the scoping meeting on the website, and I couldn't find it under other meetings or planning commission. Where was that posted, or is it posted?
It's under the planning department. Under projects, it'll list all of the different projects.
Projects, okay.
And then within those, it'll have details about each.
Is there any way to
status.
pull that over to, because you've got the tabs for meetings?
So because it's not a Brown Act meeting, it's not going to be on our normal agenda page.
Okay.
Because it's a scoping meeting just open to the public.
Okay.
To be able to give input. It's not a agendized
Thank you.
meeting, so that's the difference between the two. So that's why it's probably not in the same spot you're used
Thank you
to.
for that
And it was
clarification.
posted on social media.
Okay.
It's
I appreciate
publicly noticed, but fulfilling a sequel obligation.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Finn.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On the 9th, I attended the PASCON meeting, and I want to make this as a part 2 to Banning's Opportunity Villages, their emergency homeless center. Banning City Manager Doug Schultz gave a presentation on that, and he shared some facts that were a little bit eye-opening for me. One, he said that 50% of Banning's calls are related to homeless people in terms of the PD. And so that was an eye-opener. He shared that 5 contracted beds in a Riverside shelter were quoted at an annual cost of $2 million. That's just outrageous. And so with having this shelter and this temporary shelter in place, it gives the city of Banning authorization to enforce their homeless laws. And so it gives them some jurisdiction to be able to act on issues because unfortunately there's problems with that. There were questions that went into detail of panhandling, vandalism, and so forth, and all that were addressed and answered. And then another update from that meeting is Red Cross was there and gave an update, and they talked about their services that they offer. And they said the biggest thing that they do to help the public outside of a big, natural disaster is home fires. When someone's displaced for that the Red Cross will step in. And so obviously when I know that we had a fire here in town that claimed the life of somebody, so when something like that happens, I would hope that staff and our emergency personnel can reach out to the Red Cross as often and help those individuals out. And then just a comment, and I'm sure staff would be on this and chief would be as well, but if we get to a point where if our city is having a problem with homeless, that they would come to us and see what we can do to try to help. I hear often that when one city does one thing to help, or if they have the attitude of pushing them along, it just pushes the problem to another city. So I want to commend Banning for doing the good work that they have done there, and that we can just keep an eye on what they're doing, that if we have that need, that we can work on addressing it here. So we did, and then last thing to report, without going into detail, Mr. Martinez and I had a couple of meetings with our land use mitigation, with meeting with developers, and with meeting with staff. So, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Finn, I have a question. Did Banning address who pays for the restroom upkeep and for the manager they have on site? Is that coming out of their general fund, or do they have a grant for that, or did they talk about the upkeep of those shelters?
I'm trying to remember the best that I can, and my notes were a little brief, but I think that was something that Banning took care of, but I think they had some grant money that they were working from. If staff can help that would be appreciated. I see some head nods over here.
Yeah, I think they received some Project Home Key funding from the state, or maybe not Home Key, but one of those funds that come through CDBG and that type.
But for sustainability, have they talked about how it would go forward as far as?
That I don't know. It's a separate program from the regular CDBG like we get. So it's a separate application, separate process. We don't currently participate in that, so I don't have a lot of detail.
Okay, I was just curious, because a lot of times on those one-time funds, you have to, sustain that, or else it doesn't work, so, just curious. Thank you both. Real quickly, I did attend the 2 meetings from the Land Use Mitigation Committee and talked to some potential developers and stuff, so that happened. We had a Memorial Committee meeting and approved the next group of honorees for the Memorial, the Public Safety and Veterans Memorial. And RC was dark in August, so nothing to report, and no species of the month, so sorry. Coming soon. And the Rangel ribbon cutting, I missed the time on that. Or did
10
you
a.m.
say? It's 10 a.m. Okay.
10 a.m. on the 27th.
All right, thank you. And that's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 things to report. Number one, Mr. Laura and I attended the celebration at Morongo for the Morongo Transmission LLC, where Morongo became the first majority owner of a transmission, majority partner owner, first U.S. tribe to become a majority owner of a transmission entity. And it was a big celebration for them. They participated in the West Devers transmission upgrades to the lines that we've been going through the last few years. So that was pretty exciting. A little more exciting was the ribbon cutting at the Circle K and 76, where they offered gas for $2.99 a gallon. And I appreciate, Chief, that you got your officers out there pretty quick. After the ribbon cutting, my wife and I were walking away to our car, and I heard the radio announcer who was there for Cola. And I just heard him say as we're walking away, please no fighting at the pumps. So I don't know what happened there, but I came back at 2 o'clock and the line was still up Oak View. So it was probably the biggest ribbon cutting I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting.
Did you bring your gas cans back?
I did not.
All right,
No.
just checking.
We had filled both our cars up the day before, so, but still, it was probably at least an hour, hour and a half to get to the pumps. So you were going to say something?
We may need to ask you to take a break for a few minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, could we have a break before you conclude
Sure.
the meeting?
Sure. We'll take a 10-minute break. I guess we're good to go. Okay. At 8:24, I'll adjourn the meeting.